done that, I'm going to start recording on this.
You got your smart pad all
Smart
ready?
pads all lined up. That's not going to hear the music though, but that's okay.
They'll
live. We haven't been putting any of the music on that at all anyway. So recording. So sweet. So sweet. Good morning. This is the Formless Podcast, episode number 60, with Tyler, the superhuman, and me, Dustin.
Good morning.
Good morning. Dude, this is amazing. So, we just, we did a Facebook Live when we got this, got the Rodecaster 2 Pro, got all this stuff set up. But the learning curve is so freaking steep.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh my Lord, thought for the day, my quote that I always read that I totally forgot. Fear is an inch deep and a mile wide.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I like that one.
I just heard that the other day and I was like, oh. And
fear is an inch deep and a mile wide.
I operate on fear growing up. I operated on fear. I'll get into that in a minute. But man, this learning curve for this thing, like we were, it wasn't anything like super difficult. Like we knew what we were doing, sort of, kind of. It's just the way we needed to do it, hooking to the internet. And then like, oh, I can't hook to the internet. Let's hotspot. Well, I can't hotspot on my phone. Hotspot on your phone. And like, we got one bar, so we're out in the parking lot with like the computer and the phone and trying to get everything to work. It's like, how bad do you want this? And it's funny because my wife and I were talking. She's going to school, and my view of life and the world, when there's something you want, and like I feel like life tests you.
Correct.
God, the universe, whatever you feel. I'm not here to tell you what you should believe or what anyone should believe, but like life or the universe or God tests you. And my theory behind that, and it's a loose theory, is that like when there's something that you want, you get these little roadblocks in the way. And in my mind, it's like a test. How bad do you want this? Are you willing to go through this problem to get to the goal, to get to the thing that you want? And like, it could be something as simple as like you want to go on vacation and you get ready to go and your car doesn't start.
Yep.
Well, you want to go on vacation? How bad do you want that? Are you willing to like spend what it takes to get that car going again so you can go on that vacation? I'm just using that as like a blanket example.
Yeah.
But like with this, like we bought this equipment and like I don't know how to use it. And you don't know how to use it. We've never had one before. But I did my research. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos and read manuals and stuff. But for me, like, if I don't have the thing that I'm trying to learn about in front of me, I could read about it all day long and not retain any of that. Like I learn by doing.
Yep.
I learn by like fiddling with it and playing with it and like figuring out what the knobs do and the buttons do and all of that stuff. And even then, sometimes it's kind of a big task because like my experience level with this stuff is 0 or near 0, and
a little bit more now.
Yeah. Now, like now that we've played with it and stuff, I'm, like you were fiddling with it right before we got started, and I'm like, oh, this is how we do this, and we go to this menu right here, and like we're getting it figured out. Now, the ultimate goal with this was like to sound better, to make work easier for others, like our dear friend Mark, who's in Georgia. But that was the big goal, was like to make this so we could produce this stuff quicker and get it out there and not wait and not have delays, and to sound better. Uh, that was all of what I thought of when I got this. Like that was the complete package.
Yeah. It was a good plan.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
is a good plan.
yeah. And you know, the best plans are usually the simplest ones.
Yep.
And so we get this thing, and I'm like, great. I just kind of stared at it. Like it was intimidating, right? You know, you got like all of this gear that we've never used. When you look back at where we started from with just like the recorder that we had, we just like set it up and hit record and started talking, and now it's like it's almost like a studio.
Yeah,
it is
really,
a studio.
It is. It's a
studio.
mobile studio.
Yeah, and just to get the intro music on here and like make everything talk to each other was a task, and it's wild. It's really cool.
It is cool. Now we've upgraded, and now it's
yeah, and
we're still gonna be figuring this stuff
oh
out.
yeah, for sure. So be patient with us, friends.
But it's fun. I mean, like we were talking about, to think where we were a couple of years ago, and it was like, oh, we just got to do this podcast, and now here we are at number 60, and look at all this awesome new equipment.
Yeah.
And then we're learning how to do it. It's like empty our cup, right?
Yeah.
We always talked about empty our cup.
Yeah, and just accepting things as how they come and dealing with them in the moment instead of like freezing.
Yeah.
You know,
Deer in the headlights.
Deer in the headlights. That fear is really an inch deep. Like once you start decluttering it and kind of like getting in there and like, oh, that's not so bad. Oh, this piece isn't so bad. Oh, that's a big one. Oh, you know, and then you just kind of like start going. But it is a trek. You know, it's an inch deep and a mile wide.
Yeah. What I think is really cool, like with some of this stuff, like we talked about before, is that we now have the ability to call, you know, and do like before, whereas we could make it work, you know, do a phone call with someone like a distance away, you know, in another state, and you know, whatever. But now with this equipment, we can like really reach out there.
And not only that, but like they'll sound like they're in the room with us.
Yep.
Hopefully. That's the idea anyway. But yeah, and like we should be able to basically talk to anybody that we want. We've had there's been a list of guests that we've had for a while now that
we wanted to reach out
to. So now with this, hopefully, A, they'll want to still, and B, we'll be able to do it just like we had originally planned.
Yeah. Does my voice sound different on this this equipment? It just more clean.
Yeah, it sounds clean. It sounds like in my headphones. It sounds like you're like right here talking in my ear.
Right there.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Which is cool.
This is probably the most purest of our voices that you've heard so far.
But like not only that, like you're not gonna hear the fan going or the air conditioner or the computer humming along.
The lights, the red light. Yeah.
Hopefully. Yeah. Oh man.
Hopefully not. Yeah. So yeah, no, I think it's been really cool, like with getting all this new equipment and just, you know, like I said, emptying our cup and being like, oh, how do I relearn this stuff?
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but like, how does what you know already change? Like, you know what I mean? Because like, you had preconceived notions. I had preconceived notions. Like just getting the sound of the music on here. Like, how come I can't just pull it from the memory card, which I already have on there, to this directly, you know? and I'm looking at it one way, and I'm just ramming my head in the wall, and you're like, download the app, because it says right here. You know? But the way I had it working out in my head was like, no, this is the way it's done. This is the way it should be done.
It should work the way I want it to
work. Yeah. I'm being stubborn, and like this is how it's supposed to go. But that's not the way it works.
No, and like on this little, you know, the Roadcaster. That's what we got now. The Roadcaster Pro 2.
Yeah.
It on the front of it, you can't see it like here on the camera, but you've got the little QR code you can scan, and like I was like, oh, what's this QR code do? Let's scan this thing, and it takes us to the manual for the Roadcaster Pro 2. Which
this did not come with a manual. If you have a brain, you just scan the QR code and there's your manual.
It didn't come with a hard copy of the manual?
None that I could find.
Wow. Okay.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Like the QR code's right there. Scan that.
And you've got
the manual.
Boom, right
as
there.
long as you have an internet connection.
Somebody was thinking.
Yeah.
Like I said.
Yeah, but just not like I think. You know, it's funny. When I always heard like with computers are only as smart as the information they're given.
Oh, interesting.
I had a teacher like in middle school, in my first computer class who told me that, or told the class that, right? And I didn't understand what he meant. He's like, it only knows the input. It only knows what you give it. So if you tell it that a square has 4 equal sides, that's what it knows. It doesn't know what a circle is. It doesn't know what a triangle is. It doesn't know the number 2 unless you give it that information. Of course, now we're talking about simple terms,
right?
Because other people have given it all sorts of programming and information, and it has that. But when you're adding to that, it only knows what you give it. So if you're trying to write a program and you can't figure out why it's not doing what you're telling it to do, it's because you probably haven't told it the right information yet, or you're missing a piece of information. And I've always been like really that's always been really interesting to me, that whole thought process, because like children, like my children, like when they were, as they're growing up, they're still growing up, but like I would get frustrated with them about simple things and like, why didn't you do that this way? You know, it's like, oh, and Hunter, my oldest, is pretty sharp, and he's like, because I didn't know. And I'm like, oh, duh. You know, but something that was just you know, common to me, common sense, or common like everyday knowledge, and he didn't have that information. He didn't know, and I don't even remember, like it could have been something simple as like rinsing the dishes off before you put them in the dishwasher, or you know, something like that. You know, he just didn't have that information. He was operating on what he had and not what I had, because I hadn't told him, I hadn't given him that information yet. And
to operate on that.
And to
like,
me,
hey, you could do it this way.
Yeah, and to me, it was common sense, because I've been doing it that way for the last 30 years or whatever. This was his first experience with that, so it was like there was a bit of a disconnect, and I think there's there's a bit of a disconnect because it was our first time dipping our toe into that water and like not knowing just what this is. So you kind of like in from my perspective, like I try and put myself in the place of like whoever put this together, right? Like, what were they thinking? How were they thinking? How did they make it all work? How did they plan it all out? And like when at my old job with the website stuff that we would do, before we got the guy they have now working on it, they had multiple different people working on it. So you'd be like looking for like, how do I turn on and off a sale on an item, or how do I hide an item temporarily on the website? And you'd be looking for it, and you're looking for the word hide, or the word turn off, turn on, the phrase, on the back end, which is just a bunch of lines of code or a bunch of options, like with switches, And you can't find it because you're using a phrase that you thought of and not the phrase of the programmer.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
And a lot of times, if you don't look beyond that, you spend hours trying to find it, and then you find it, and you're like, oh, I didn't use that word. I didn't think of that phrase, that word, or whatever.
Yeah. Because I may not have known.
No. Yeah. It's
I see what you're saying.
Wild.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It's having that like, not everyone and everything is going to have a common language. The same, you're looking for the word that says hide, and they used a different word.
They used like, invisible, or they used some other phrase, and because you're not looking for that phrase, you're looking for your phrase. You can't make heads or tails of it.
Yeah. So, and sometimes like with that, that's something I've become so aware of, in our modern age, is that we may have different terms for the same thing, different words for the same thing, like that. What was the term on that website that you were trying to hide something? Was it delist, or?
Yeah, I think it was delist.
Delist or hide, and so.
Or turn off.
Turn off.
Yeah, something simple, and it was like, why did you use that word? Why couldn't you just use hide or whatever?
Yeah, it's so important these days to. I mean, we could be using two separate words for the same thing, or they could be two similar sounding words that you're using for the same thing, but they're not actually the same thing. And that's always the because hiding versus delisting that's totally
two separate things.
Two separate things.
Yeah.
So if you've got to figure out what is actually being done.
Yeah. and being a layman and not knowing like how it actually works and how the program is put together, I didn't know the proper phrase. So, it's just like I kind of feel that way my whole life.
Not knowing the proper phrase,
like
proper wording.
I kind of know what I'm doing.
Kind of, sort of. We're figuring it out.
Yeah.
I know. That's really good. But I really enjoy getting new equipment and something new and having to learn it. And
that's part of the excitement of this.
Yep.
Like, yeah, for sure. Like, oh, I got this new toy, or I got this new thing. Like, wow, what's all? And we haven't even scratched the surface of this, how it works, what it does. But it's also like, it's a new thing to learn. It's a new thing to I don't want to say master, but it's a new thing to like become acquainted with. Whereas like just like martial arts, you learn a new technique or a new combination or a new strategy, and you're like, oh, I gotta see how this works and see how, this does it this way, and it works like this, but it doesn't work in this situation, or it doesn't work like this, or it won't work against a grappler, or there's like all of these different things, and you find that like somebody can tell you about it, somebody can describe it to you, somebody can give you all of the knowledge that they have, but until you get in there and do it, you don't experience it.
Right. That's good.
Yeah.
And you have to, the older I get, the more important I see this, is you have to, part of getting this new equipment or anything, whatever you get, a new toy, and emptying your cup and saying like, okay, I'm going to learn this or discover this. And I choose to apply to myself kind of like a childlike fascination, a childlike fun, you're just like a childlike interest to something like this, where you're like with the QR code, I was like, oh, what's this QR code? What does this do? And just like scan it and see, and you just have to have that type of curiosity. And it's like fun. It's not like, gotta figure out how this piece of equipment works. Like,
Kicking the dirt.
It's part of the fun, is getting something and finding out what all the buttons do. Like what does like I'm sitting here like and we're recording and I'm like, oh, what are all the inputs? I'm looking on the back of this.
Yeah,
this,
and
you know,
there's
this
like a dozen.
yeah, on the back. I'm like, what does that input do? What can we plug into that?
It's rad. It really is. That's a very cool outlook to have, because like
it's a very intentional outlook.
Yeah, but it's a mindset. Like you
Yeah.
have to have that kind of a mindset, and I think that's part of a creative mindset. Like you know, you're into the movies, you're producing movies, you're you know, we talked a movie idea the other day, and I think there's part of that in that makeup of a creative type.
That wants to explore.
That explore. That ooh, what does this button do? You know.
That's a good point. Yeah. Like you have that curiosity, that creativeness.
Well,
creativity.
Yeah. You have to take an idea and run with it. And like, oh, how far can I get with this? Is this a legitimate thing, or is this just like a shot in the dark?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and you could take that and you could look at something and be like, okay, got this new piece of equipment, and you can be like, okay, this is a chore to like set this up and figure this out, you know.
Yeah.
Or you could be like, this is fun, like a mindset, you know. Oh, hey, let's get creative with this. Let's have fun. Let's explore.
Yeah, which is not what I was doing last week when I was trying to figure it out. Because Tyler and I had, when we first got this, it took us, it was a whole long ordeal to get, but like we got it, we met up, we hooked it all up, and we hooked all the stuff up, set the levels, and just started talking and did like a quick 20-minute, half-hour little session. And okay, that's good. Took it home, thought I'd be able to do all this stuff. And it was so quiet. It was so quiet that I had the volume on the speakers all the way up, and it was just barely above a whisper. And it was something simple, as like we didn't have the gain turned up enough or something like that. I don't remember what the technical term is, but we didn't have it like adjusted correctly. And now we've, you know, but we had to play with it. And it was like, well, I got time. You got time? Yeah, we got time. Let's make it work, you know. And it took us a little bit, but we figured it out and we got it going.
And it's going.
Yeah, and you know, the fear thing, like, what could go wrong? Well, it might take us 2 hours instead of an hour and a half or whatever. You know, that was like the worst possible option. It's not going to self-destruct. Nobody's going to lose a limb.
Yeah, right.
Nobody's going to...
We're not like our parents where we're afraid to touch it.
Yeah. Or...
that was a joke. Right?
No. You know, no one's going to die.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I was afraid of, but obviously fear is only an inch deep.
And a mile wide.
For that.
That's good.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. I remember the first computer we bought. My dad's probably going to get mad at me if he listens to this. So we bought a computer from Costco, right? And we open it up, get it all out, and my dad's like furiously looking over the instructions, like really reading and stuff. He's like, I don't know what to do. It was a Dell. It's a Dell computer we bought from Costco. It's a Pentium 100. Okay, this was like the early 90s. All of the cords were color-coded with the inputs. So like the pink cord went to the pink input, the green cord went to the, you know, it was like the complete package, right? So my dad's like looking at the instructions and I'm like, oh, pink, click, green, click, you know, just plugging it all in, turned it on, and he's like, what are you doing? Nothing, like, setting it up, man. But on the flip side of this, I gotta continue to tell this story to embarrass myself. Yeah. Right? So we got it all together. Everything's working. We had it for like a year. And now I'm like 13, 14. And I couldn't find Microsoft Word on it. It was in a,
Have
it
you
was in a
found it
folder.
before?
No,
You've
no.
never found it? Okay.
My main interest was like getting on the internet and getting to play games. That was, I didn't care. Like my dad was like, "You're going to use this for schoolwork or stuff." Like, yeah, sure thing, Dad. But he's like, it has to have it. It said, like, the salesman told me, and the box said it had Microsoft Word. You should be able to type programs. All I could find was Notepad on there. Well, Notepad does nothing other than allow you to type. Basically, it doesn't have like a spell check. It doesn't. None of the other, nice fancy programs that it has, right? So fast forward like a year of having this computer, and my dad being super irritated that it didn't have it when it, like he probably wanted to go punch the salesman. And we had some company over who knew more about computers than I did. And my mom was like, "Yeah, and it doesn't have that Word program or, the typing program." And she gets on it and like grabs the mouse and goes, "Oh yeah, it does. It's right here." Click, opens. Literally the first time it had been opened
in a year.
Yeah, because it was called something else. It was called Microsoft Office or Microsoft whatever. And it was like, I didn't really spend a whole lot of time looking for it because that wasn't a big concern of mine. But yeah, so lesson learned.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Well, yeah, I was thinking, like we were talking, it's nice that we did all these podcasts and we just set out and we did it. And now here we are upgraded, and now it's...
Well, and like each one got a little bit better.
Yeah, everyone got a little bit better.
At least, like, I'd like to think so. I hope so. But each one got a little bit, like the intent, the quality, the length, the fluidity. It just got a little bit better, and it's just like everything else in life. You start out to learn some new skill. You don't just learn how to skydive by jumping out of a plane. You got to figure out how the parachute works.
Yep. Yeah.
How to pack the parachute, and how to put it on, and exactly what altitude you pull the ripcord, and all of those things. How you land when you get to the ground, and all of those other intricate details that I'm probably missing. But just like anything else, you got to take one small step at a time.
And here we are. This is a big. Now we took small steps, and this is like a bigger step.
Well, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure, a big step. But I'm excited. I'm excited. The best is yet to come, I think, because we're gonna get there. Like it's coming together.
It's coming. Yeah, and it's like what you're talking about, like with the color coded things, like on your computers that you got in the 90s. Okay, pink goes to pink and all this. It's funny just to, like, I'm looking at the back of the board, like I was saying, and I'm looking at all the different inputs, and there's just I think that was like that childlike discovery when you were like, oh, pink to pink, like
yeah.
And it just, you just plug it in, and your dad's over there, and I'm like, I can see this picture. Your dad's over there with the manual, being like, okay, where's step one? Like, and you're just the kid. You're like, oh, like that. That
makes sense.
That makes sense. They color coded it for us. We can figure this out. And of course, it could have went the wrong way. The other way, you could have tried to jam a square into a round hole. Something like that. Yeah. But at least it was color coded. It was dummy proof.
It was dummy proof. I
wish life was more like that.
The first digital camera I ever bought.
Yeah.
I bought for my wife for Christmas, and I completely ruined it. Day like 2 of having it.
Wow.
I flipped the memory card was like one of those big square ones,
Yeah.
I'm literally holding my fingers up an inch apart, so you the big square ones. It's not the thin little micro SD or the. It was one of the first. It was like 8 megabytes or something like that. It was like it was like a little bit bigger than a postage stamp. You know what I'm talking about? Fairly thick. But the card went in upside down, in the slot where the plug the card in had all these little fine pins.
Yep.
And I put it in there upside down, and it went in smooth. And the only resistance it had is the last like 9/10 of the way before it seated home. It had a little bit of resistance, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of weird." And I just pushed it with my thumb and turned the camera on, and nothing worked. I was like, "Oh crap!" And I pulled the card out after like figuring out like the batteries, like it still had power and all this stuff. Pulled the card out, and I looked inside, and all of the pins had been pushed flat because it was only supposed to go in one way, and I put it in the wrong way. But it was under warranty, and they replaced it and stuff. And I think we used it for 6 months, and then better technology came out. Or whatever. But
probably wasn't the first time that company had heard about that.
No, I'm sure it was a flaw because the next one, the card would only go in one way.
One way, yeah. Companies got smart.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just simple stuff like that could go wrong if you're a caveman about stuff.
Yeah, so, now with this, we've got, like I said, we've got the ability to reach out. So if anybody out there, we've got any guests we think we could
for sure. I've got a list in my head right now that I know for a fact.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to reach out to now.
Because we can reach out to them now.
We can do it.
But I mean, if there's anybody else we don't know that
we
haven't thought
absolutely.
Of, drop us an email to our Gmail, and we'll be able to, talk to people, and
we'll connect. We'll connect for sure. Should we wrap it up? I mean, I just kind of wanted to play with it and make sure everything works, but
I think we got it. We're experts now.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
We're professionals. Speaking of Gmail, so the Gmail account or the email account that you can reach out to us is theformlesspod@gmail.com. We have a Facebook group called The Formless Pod, and on Instagram, Formless Pod. We have a website called theformlesspod.com. There's a store. The store is not linked to the website yet, I believe, but we'll get that taken care of. You can find the store on our Facebook group and on Instagram, but we'll get there. We got shirts and sweaters and pillows and a couple of other things too, I believe.
That's it. I think you hit all the points.
Yeah. Friends, have a wonderful evening. We'll get that part figured out shortly.
Oh, that's pause. You gotta press and hold it. That was funny. There was a setting on there that I noticed that you had
I did it on the first part, but I didn't do it on the second one.
So we'll have to change it.
Yeah, I'll have to change that setting. But that should be simple as doing here. So edit, and we want it to one shot. Check. There we go.
So you don't have to hold it.
Yeah. And it'll play.
That's cool. That's fun.
Dude, this just got
so much better.
This just got like 100 times better. Take care, YouTube.